Hey everybody, hope you're all having a fun Memorial weekend. Before I start the video, I just wanted to let you guys know that just in case my Twitter account does get suspended again, because last time it got suspended out of nowhere, you should subscribe to this channel so that if my account does get suspended, I will make a video on YouTube just letting you guys know where you can find me. I'll have to make a new account, obviously. So I just to be cautious, my account did get suspended in the past for zero reason. So it could be worth subscribing to the channel so that if I do get suspended again, you'll know where to find me. Now let's jump into the GME video. So as I spoke about in countless videos, the month of May did not provide a good opportunity for a squeeze higher because, as you can see from the monthly velocity on the bottom, that monthly velocity was negative going into the month of May. And this means that even if price gets above the monthly trigger in May, throughout the month, this negative monthly velocity will be pulling price back down below the monthly trigger, which is actually, unfortunately, exactly what we saw, but expected because of this negative monthly velocity. So negative monthly velocity did its job and pulled price back down below the monthly trigger. Now keep in mind, there are 5 days left to the month of May, actually only 4 more trading days, and if GME can close the month above the monthly trigger, then for the first time since, way back when, 2020, October 2020, we'll have our first velocity flip from negative monthly velocity to positive monthly velocity. And after 3 months of positive monthly velocity, well, you all know what happened next. So in a very similar situation here, after going through a long period of negative monthly velocity, and if in 5 days GME can close above the monthly trigger at 20.29, that will give GME its first bullish monthly velocity print in over a year or two, and that will set up a very bullish looking summer ahead. Now, I just want to take off price for a moment to drive this point home. We spoke about in previous videos about how price breaking above the monthly trigger is significant, but the breakout is not confirmed until the daily trigger and the weekly trigger can get above the monthly trigger. And we also spoke about how each trigger crossing above the monthly trigger will cause another burst of upside acceleration, just like we saw back in December of 2020 when price did break above the monthly trigger, but before accelerating, right away, it needed to get its bullish crossovers first. I'll bring that up right here. All right, so we can see price crossing above the monthly trigger here. And then once the daily trigger crossed above the monthly trigger, we got some more upside acceleration. And then a couple of months later, once the weekly trigger crossed above the monthly trigger, that's when the real move to the upside started. So fast forward back to today, we're in a very similar spot where price has crossed above the monthly trigger, but the daily trigger has not. And you can see when I take away price here that none of this price action really mattered. What was super important was getting the daily trigger above the monthly trigger, and you can see how shorts were able to stop the daily trigger from crossing above the monthly trigger at the very, very, very last second by collapsing price back below the daily trigger on Thursday. So it's important to understand that price action doesn't really mean much. What really matters is getting these bullish crossovers, which is the daily trigger crossing above the monthly trigger and the weekly trigger crossing above the monthly trigger. Now, we did speak about how weekly velocity had finally flipped positive right here over the past week from this major move higher. It turned the weekly velocity positive, and you can see the weekly strength in this blue shaded region held support very nicely on Friday. That's That's why I tweeted out that I thought this was going to be the bottom, because as price moves into the shaded blue region, which is the weekly trigger strength, we expect bulls to come in and push price back up, which is exactly what happened. Now, you can see there's a major trigger cluster here of the daily, monthly, and hourly triggers. And when there is a tight trigger cluster and price breaks through it, we expect a lot of upside acceleration. Price breaking above one trigger brings a lot of upside acceleration. Like you could see price breaking above the daily trigger here without negative daily velocity. Over here, it did have negative daily velocity, as you can see by the shaded region. When price broke above the daily trigger, there was really strong acceleration. And when price broke above the weekly trigger, again, really strong acceleration. When price broke above the monthly trigger, there was a ton of upside acceleration, because as price breaks above a higher and higher time frame trigger, the acceleration is stronger and stronger. So price breaking above one trigger leads to a lot of upside acceleration, but it doesn't come close to price breaking above 3 triggers at once. Now that leads to a lot of upside acceleration. So if price can hold the after hours move to 20, 21 or so by Tuesday, and price can open up above these 3 triggers, then we would expect a lot of upside acceleration, and the stop loss or then validation level would be right below the trigger cluster. So that means that as long as price can hold above this level on Tuesday, that sets up a really great trade from a trader's perspective, where once price is above here, we would expect it to start exploding higher and pullbacks to be short and swift, because that's the effect of a bullish 3 trigger cluster setup. Now, if GME can indeed stick above this trigger cluster and move up for the next 5 days of May and close the month above the monthly trigger, not only will that set up bullish monthly velocity for the month of June, which will give GME good wind at its back to continue moving higher, but will also complete the first bullish crossover, which is the daily trigger crossing above the monthly trigger. And as price pushes higher and higher, weekly velocity will grow stronger. We'll have bullish monthly velocity, and that sets up a bullish weekly trigger, monthly trigger crossover for July. And then after the daily trigger and the weekly trigger are above the monthly trigger, in July time about, that's when we can expect things to really start ramping up and GME to explode to this box, at least probably September time. Now, this is, I think, longest case scenario. Things might happen a lot quicker. There are a lot of uncertainties, but just based on the current setup that I'm seeing, I do believe as long as GME can remain above this red box, get its bullish daily trigger, monthly trigger crossover, flip monthly velocity positive, weekly velocity will continue rising. That's very important for this weekly velocity to continue pushing higher next week. That sets up everything perfectly for a gigantic move higher into the hundreds as early as September. If this video was helpful, consider leaving a like. I work hard on these videos, and if you could share, that would also help me a lot. Thank you guys, good luck, and enjoy the summer.